Politicians have offered confusing and conflicting information on guns in the wake of the San Bernardino shootings and President Obama's announced plans for tighter gun controls. Jeb Bush said Obama's plan would take away the rights of someone selling a gun out of their collection, a one-off gun, by requiring that person to perform background checks. That's not correct. Such one-off private gun sales would be unaffected by Obama's proposals. In an ad, Marco Rubio says Obama's plan is to take away our guns. The president's plan would do no such thing. No guns would be confiscated under Obama's plan, and no law-abiding citizen would be denied the ability to purchase a gun. In an interview, Donald Trump said Hillary Clinton's gun plan is worse than Obama's, and that she wants to take everyone's gun away. That's not what Clinton is proposing either. Obama said that historically, the NRA was in favor of background checks. That's misleading. The NRA opposed the Brady Bill and offered an alternative background check provision that gun control advocates saw as an attempt to kill the bill. Obama's proposal. In an emotion-filled speech on January 5th, President Obama announced a series of executive actions aimed at reducing gun violence. The most controversial was Obama's plan to crack down on some unregulated internet gun sales. The plan does not include any new regulations or an executive order. Rather, Obama has directed the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives to clarify that anyone engaged in the business of selling firearms, even if the seller operates over the internet or at gun shows, must get a license and conduct background checks. In other words, Obama said, it's not will you do it, but what you do. And, Obama warned, those who engage in the business of selling firearms via the internet or at gun shows but do not obtain a license and subject buyers to background checks will be federally prosecuted. A person who willfully engages in the business of dealing in firearms without the required license is subject to criminal prosecution and can be sentenced up to 5 years in prison and fined up to $250,000, the White House warned. To back that up, Obama also announced that ATF has established an Internet Investigations Center that will track illegal online firearms trafficking, and Obama vowed that his 2017 budget proposal would include funding for an additional 200 ATF agents and investigators. Obama's plan also includes the hiring of 230 additional FBI staff members to help to more efficiently and effectively perform background checks, and $500 million to improve mental health services. There has been some confusion about his proposals. For example, a number of our readers asked us to fact-check Obama's claim that some gun sellers have been operating under a different set of rules. A violent felon can buy the exact same weapon over the internet with no background check, no questions asked. Many of those readers correctly noted that federally licensed firearms dealers, no matter where they operate, including the internet, are already required to perform background checks on the gun purchaser. And, besides, it's illegal for a felon to purchase a gun, period. But that doesn't mean Obama's statement is wrong. Obama did not say violent felons are permitted to purchase guns over the internet, only that some can. Obama was referring to those who buy guns from sellers who purport to be private sellers, not licensed dealers, and therefore are not required to perform background checks. According to current law, those engaged in the business of firearms dealing are required to be federally licensed, and must then subject buyers to background checks. But the law exempts any person who makes occasional sales, exchanges, or purchases of firearms for the enhancement of a personal collection or for a hobby, or who sells all or part of his personal collection of firearms. In moving to crack down on internet sales, Obama is acting on the belief that too many sellers engaged in the business of selling firearms are purporting to be private sellers in order to avoid the need to be licensed, and in turn be required to obtain background checks. That's why, in an op-ed published by the New York Times on January 8th, Obama said the gun control steps he announced earlier in the week include making sure that anybody engaged in the business of selling firearms conducts background checks. The key phrase in that statement is making sure. Although Obama did not set a threshold number of sales to define who should be a licensed dealer, the White House noted that the quantity and frequency of sales are relevant indicators. The administration noted that even a few transactions, when combined with other evidence, can be sufficient to establish that a person is engaged in the business. For example, courts have upheld convictions for dealing without a license when as few as 2 firearms were sold or when only 1 or 2 transactions took place when other factors also were present. An Associated Press story said those other factors include business indicators such as selling weapons in their original packaging and for a profit. Some have cautioned that Obama's actions will have little real effect on gun violence. Carlyle Moody, an economics professor at William & Mary, told us Obama's proposals will almost certainly have no effect on violent crime because licensed firearms dealers who do business over the internet already do background checks.